We have a motion by Mr. Garcia. Do we have a second? Second by Dr. Lee. Discussion.
I just want to make a statement today that we are approving an individual who does not have a Chapter 21 contract.
Before we go, personnel issues can only be discussed in executive session.
¡Cállate la boca!
Congratulations to RGCCISD for getting a B in general. Yay for the kids that got smart without Tango and the teachers that did it without new iPads and computers. I went to the RGCCISD meeting. They broke into executive session and talked about some new contracts. It was about this time that most of the cameras were put away and people seemed to have walked out. Watch closely as Baltasar prevents Bacho from talking about an individual who does not have a Chapter 21 contract.
We have a motion by Mr. Garcia. Do we have a second? Second by Dr. Lee. Discussion.
I just want to make a statement today that we are approving an individual who does not have a Chapter 21 contract.
Before we go, personnel issues can only be discussed in executive session. You can just say that you're going to vote against it as you discuss the executive. You cannot take the bill.
Okay.
We have a motion on item C. Mr. Garcia, second by Dr. Lee. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, raise your left hand. Motion carries.
What role is Baltasar Salazar assuming at this point? Think about it. He's not the school district's lawyer at this point. He's the shield that keeps information from reaching the public. He was brought in by rats to act like the rat lawyer that he is. He is G. Allen's comrade, and he is there to make sure Danny Garcia keeps raising his right hand when he is needed to vote.
Right now.
Maybe the public should know that all of this has been set up by the Starr County District Attorney's Office.
Well, all I can do is I can speak for the part that I know is within the school district.
Exactly.
I've had no conversation with the district attorney's office.
He is the instrument they are using to not be transparent. Bacho says, I just want to make a statement today that we are approving an individual who does not have a Chapter 21 contract. Then he gets interrupted by Baltasar. Before we go, personnel issues can only be discussed in executive session. You can just say you're going to vote against it, or something along those lines. Basically, what he's saying is, you can't have a discussion, you just have to vote on it, and that's it. You can say you're not going to vote on it. Is that true? Well, if we look at the Open Meetings Act laws, may members of the governing body publicly discuss what was considered in a closed meeting. The act does not prohibit a member from discussing or making statements about what occurred in a closed meeting. There it is. It's that simple. Why is Baltasar saying that it can only be discussed inside the meeting? Because he doesn't want anybody to know about it. Why is he shielding this person? Who is this person? What the hell is going on? Who is running this show? This is the total opposite of transparency. Who the hell puts this Pillsbury doughboy reject of a lawyer in check when his mouth starts spouting off bullshit? I was there. What was I supposed to do? Call bullshit? Yell out at the top of my lungs, hey dipshit, let Bacho talk. Do I need to take noisemakers and turn the meetings into a circus every time something like this happens? He used his position as the school district's attorney to silence Bacho. He starts tap dancing on the gray areas of the optional executive sessions. Executive sessions are not mandatory. The board chooses to use executive sessions to handle sensitive information that might hurt someone's reputation if the allegations leak out. But these guys are using executive session to hire people that don't have the proper credentials. So which is more illegal? Talking about something that was being hidden via executive session or hiring someone without proper credentials? Who decides? Well, you do, the voter. The taxpayer. At the end of this, what this really translates to is either an increase in your taxes or borrowing money, which later leads to an increase in your taxes. Your tax dollars are being used to pay school attorneys so the school attorney can hide the fact that the board is hiring someone that did not go through the same hurdles and obstacles everyone else had to go through to get Chapter 21 certified. But did they have to smirk? Take a close look at the expressions Danny and Dr. B make at the moment that Baltasar starts to lay down the law to shut Bacho up.
An individual who does not have a Chapter 21 contract,
Before we go, personnel issues can only be discussed in executive session. You can just say that you're going to vote against it as you discuss in executive. You cannot take individual.
Okay, make a statement today that we are approving an individual who does not have a Chapter 21 contract.
Before we go, personnel issues can only be discussed in executive session. You can just say that you're going to vote against it as you discuss in executive. You cannot take individual.
Why even try to hide it at this point? Their happy asses are riding the victory train because someone they wanted to have a contract renewed got their contract renewed, and this person isn't even Chapter 21 certificated, educated. And why is Danny still there? Oh yeah, it was after 7 p.m. and the person that serves court orders gets off at 5. The day of the fake profile and the anonymous page is behind us. If it isn't real, it isn't worth your time. The incumbents are stepping to the transparency plate and they are fearlessly speaking directly to you guys. While I set up another meeting with the RGCCISD school board, here's Starr County Attorney Victor Canales taking the time to toss the ball around with us.
Hello, my name is Victor Canales. I am the Starr County Attorney. Good to be here.
What exactly is the function of
The county attorney is actually tasked with several things. The main function is, there's two main functions. Number one, to advise the commissioner's court. The second function, just as important, is to handle all the misdemeanor cases in the county of Starr. There's other things that happen as well, that we handle all juvenile cases from felony down to misdemeanors, as well as mental commitments, drug commitments. We outreach to the community regarding protective orders and women and men who are victims of domestic violence.
That's a pretty large scope. Is that an elected position, the county attorney?
Yes, it's every 4 years. The term is a 4-year term, and it is in fact elected.
So if a person didn't have experience in municipal court or whatnot, like this issue that's being brought up by Bobby Salinas in Roma with Marty Garcia Vela, where she's appointed and he wanted to interview her. In your case, she could have run for county attorney, gotten some of that heavy-duty municipal experience, and then taken it over to a city.
Certainly, yes. Whenever you're dealing with boards or city councils or commissioners' courts, it's really specialized. The law is very specific, and you learn by experience. It's not as a general practitioner. It's really specialized, and tiene su chiste.
And how long have you been county attorney?
I am currently serving my 4th term. This year, I am in my 15th year of serving as the county attorney. I was the assistant county attorney 3 years prior to that, and for a short stint when I was running for county attorney, I served as a assistant district attorney.
There's no one better, in my opinion, to ask the following question, because you've done it, 4 or 5 times already? You've ran for county attorney while you're doing the job.
That is correct, yes.
What is it like getting close to election time and having to do your job and start getting ready for the politics of it all?
It's not fun. It really starts to become a little overwhelming because everything you do starts getting tainted by the specter of politics. People take your actions that you do on a regular basis and they'll color it with the brushstroke of politics, that some way, somehow you're playing politics with it. Unfortunately, that's the beast that we have now. It's not fun. We do what we do. Oftentimes, I'm actually asked why I still do it. Why don't I just get out of politics? And the fact of the matter is that because what we do as bearers of truth, as seeking justice, as prosecutors, is pretty important, and to just let it fall by the wayside because of discomfort doesn't feel right. It really truly doesn't.
It takes a certain kind of individual to sit in your seat and do the job effectively, and to separate the politics of it from the actual fairness, if you will, of it all.
I don't think I'm special, to be quite honest with you. I try to just do what's right. I talk to people. One thing I've learned over the last year or two, that even by people who don't care for me, attorneys that are not aligned with me politically, if you will, they will tell you that even though I don't see eye to eye with them on politics, I never take it out on their client.
And that's why you're still there, in my opinion. It's a big part of it. And in looking at the way, I guess there's been like a shift in the way that the news is getting reported on social media or whatnot. I've started to kind of notice, and especially now, that there's this bias. It really kind of became obvious to me with the last post that the Tejano put out regarding Danny Garcia. What is it like in general to have that kind of burden placed upon even just trying to communicate?
Well, I've learned recently, you try to trust all media outlets and whatnot and try to trust for them to be unbiased. I guess it's a human condition, but sometimes bias creeps in. And unfortunately, in that article that you're talking about, Tejano, I just saw it as a hit piece, quite frankly. It was skewed. Just even to read the word count, Mr. Ramirez's argument was laid out beautifully, eloquently, nicely, with a lot of words. And basically the sum of it was that I came up and said everything he said, not true.
I noticed it also in the case where the young man got 5 days of jail time for having violated his pre-trial conditions. The Tejano basically laid out the argument for the young man, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm not the decision maker. I'm not going to make the decision for the young man, but I felt like an argument was out of place by El Tejano. I would have appreciated just to kind of have known about it. And I've learned to take that with a grain of salt. I read things and I can already separate the bias and try to take as much fact from it as I can. But sometimes I feel like the average person needs to hear your voice direct. What would you say in your defense to somebody that reads something about you?
What I've taken to do now, and recently social media is a whole new phenomenon. It makes me feel old as hell. I remember the good old days that you would look at Channel 5, see the monitor, and that was about it. With the advent of social media, politics has taken a really nasty slide, and how the news gets out there has equally. Now anyone can pretty much become a journalist. There need not be any studying, no schooling. If you just call yourself one, you can be a blogger pretty much and give the news out there. And the thing about it is that, especially recently, a lot of my comments were being miscommunicated to people. Talking about the Los Morenos drainage project, there's a group that purports to represent a lot of the individuals and residents of the area that were affected by floods. I would talk to the leadership, and some way, somehow, my message would get completely misconstrued and then put on Facebook and just completely twisted. So I just decided to cut out the middleman and hold a town hall meeting to talk to the people themselves individually. That way they could come, talk to me, ask me what they wanted to know, and hear directly from me and not have that translation lost. So someone that reads something in a newspaper or a news story on TV or a Facebook page, what I say to them, if they really, and the crazy thing about it is you have people that have never met me form an opinion based off of what other people write. I simply tell them, if you really want to get to know me, come by my office. I have an open door policy. I'm not there every single minute of the day because I do jump from place to place, court to court, office to office. My staff will schedule you for a meeting and we'll sit down and talk, and I'll be happy to talk just about any subject that they want to talk about.
Out of curiosity, when I first communicated to you, if you'd come down and sit down and have this interview, what was your expectation? What did you expect was going to come out of this?
Literally just a Q&A. I had no expectation. I was just wondering and curious what it would entail. There's so many things going on in Starr County at this time, and the breadth of the stuff that I'm involved in is just a lot of stuff. So I really was curious to see which one of the subjects we were going to talk about.
What is it like when you're watching and observing all of these legal acrobatics that Gocha, Baltasar Salazar, and these guys are doing in the RGCCISD?
Looking from the outside in, I used to represent RGCCISD, and currently Mr. Ramirez loves to make allusions to that the fact that I was dismissed by RGCCISD and that some way, somehow this is politically motivated by me because of my dismissal. Nothing could be further from the truth, quite frankly. That's the nature of the beast that we're involved with when you're in politics, and if you're representing the school district, your job pretty much depends on the majority of the board. The majority of the board, when I was employed, lost. A new board was going to come in, and I was dismissed. It's part and parcel of the job. It's inherent in it. So no, there is no politics or rather a sour taste left when you're dismissed by the board. It's part of it. And in fact, their new counsel at the time, and I communicated, and he expressed that he felt bad, but that was part of the beast. The same thing had happened to him previously in another school district. And so seeing that they're trying to tie what's going on at the school district with the school board members suing for restraining orders and so on and so forth, some way, somehow to this removal action, they some way, somehow think that there's some sort of collusion and some working hand in hand on the two, where quite frankly it's pretty far-fetched and not the truth. There is no conspiracy. There would have to be
a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, well, you'd have to have a conspiracy with the federal government, the Attorney General's office, the Special Crimes Unit, the minority school board members, my office, the district attorney's office. That's a pretty big conspiracy, to be handing in there.
Maybe the public should know that all of this has been set up by the Starr County District Attorney's Office.
Well, all I can do is I can speak for the part that I know is within the school district.
Exactly.
I've had no conversation with the district attorney's office.
When you're a lawyer and you're watching these guys say some of the things that they're saying, we don't know what the hell there's going on or what they're doing. But from your experience, and you're watching these guys take these motions and doing these different things, how do you feel about that?
Well, the first, especially in this case, in the removal proceeding of Mr. Daniel Garcia, first of all, the first thing that I could not understand, and I didn't understand it even until the time of the hearing, the way Mr. Ramirez interpreted the law, was that some way, somehow, I was disqualified from bringing the action because I had represented Rio Grande City's school district and Mr. Garcia in his capacity as a school board member for 2 years.
I kind of saw it as, oh yeah, they're going to take the easy way out. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to try to get Victor out of the way.
That's what it looked like, and I couldn't understand it. And basically the way Mr. Ramirez was representing to the court was, because I represented Mr. Garcia as a school board member, if he was to stay as a school board member 20 years from now, and somebody brought a sexual harassment allegation against him and wanted to sue him in court, I couldn't represent that person because 22, 24 years earlier, I had represented him as a school board member.
Right.
Like, that doesn't make any sense to me factually. I mean, it just doesn't. And so the judge basically found that there was no unfair advantage. And you go to the heart of the matter when you're trying to disqualify an attorney, it's that the attorney some way, somehow, by representing that other person, in this case, Mr. Garcia, that I had some sort of unfair advantage. I knew some sort of facts that I would not have known otherwise because I represented him. And quite frankly, everything took place, and all the allegations regarding Mr. Garcia as a school board member took place in 2017, which was three full years after I had already been let go by Rio Grande City School District.
No, but this is a master plan, and you're a part of it, and there's a conspiracy, and it's written in some magical stone somewhere.
Yeah, it boggles my mind that he was actually very adamant about that I had a conflict in that, and I really, truly did not believe that I did, and I don't. And the judge saw it the same way that I did, in which he said that there was no conflict and allowed me to continue representing Mr. Lopez in the case.
I look at it, and it's kind of like a little scandal. Oh, my God, former RGCCISD attorney Victor Canales is doing this. And so how do you handle these kind of like little scandal deals? How do you go home and how do you like just deal with it?
I have to be able to look in the mirror. Ultimately, that's just really what it boils down to. You just basically, if it's not true and I can look at myself in the mirror and I know that what they're saying is false, I just move on. You have to. You just can't carry it with you. I can't please every person. And ultimately, the person that I have to please is God. And then after that, whatever comes will come. And you can form your opinion of me. And like I said, I sleep very well at night.
I look at Ross Barrera running Rio Taxup and the way that he talks about Omar Escobar and murders that go unsolved and whatnot. And they're pretty much almost challenging the Texas Rangers. I wish I could get like an old Texas Ranger to come in and talk to me about this, right? But when you're watching this happen, what is going on through your mind?
Well, the reality of it is, unfortunately, a lot of individuals are trying to make these cases, which the DA has no investigatory input into it. In other words, he doesn't do the investigating. The cases are brought to him. The Rangers have this case. If there's evidence, sufficient evidence, it will be taken to a grand jury. To this point, I don't know the inner workings of the case. I see it from the outside. I have nothing to do with these cases. But the role of the DA in this case has been greatly, and I mean greatly, exaggerated. At this point, it belongs to the Texas Rangers. It belongs to law enforcement. Individuals that are trained in investigation prosecution. Until they turn the case over and they recommend charges be filed, they can go out and arrest people if they have a suspicion that it's somebody, a reasonable suspicion. They can go get a warrant or find probable cause, have the individual arrested because they believe that he committed a crime. They don't need the DA for that. They can go ask for an arrest warrant, or they can choose. They have some evidence if they don't think it's too strong or whatnot. They can, or for political reasons, just to ensure that due process is handed, they take it to the DA and they recommend that they take it to the grand jury.
Have you ever been in that situation where somebody's accusing you of not doing your job and you've explained it to them up, down, sideways, in and out, and it's like the hardest thing for you to communicate to them because they don't want to accept it?
Yeah, sometimes our beliefs, we can't believe what's in front of us. You can't see the forest for the trees sometimes. I've had individuals, I've had victims, unfortunately, that, you explain to them the strengths and weaknesses of their case. A jury doesn't believe it, doesn't believe what they claimed, and you try and explain it to them, and they just will not accept that sometimes. That's unfortunate, but it does happen. We're human beings, we're flawed. As far as, you have professionals sometimes when you explain to them certain things and they just don't want to understand or believe, there has to always be some underlying motivation. It could not be just because of what it actually is.
One of the things that's kind of starting to happen is you have a lot of people trying to disassociate themselves from the four for Roma people. And I'm talking about the original 90 people is what I was told more or less were a part of this group. And now people are trying to communicate to me, hey, I want to distance myself from that image, from that brand. What can you shed light on us in the way that specific group would operate?
I really can't. I wasn't part of that at all.
You weren't a part of that?
Not at all. Not at all. That was actually, that happened, 4 years ago?
4 or 5 years ago?
Something along those lines. Yeah, no, I've just from the outside, I just know that one of my classmates, Tony Sainz, I know that Leti Garza Galvan, I know that Dago Salinas and Raul Moreno were running together, and we had the affectionate term in the community, Las Caritas. The 4 for Roma was the Caritas because of their posters, but that's, as far as how it operated, I really to this day don't know.
I'm starting to find out, because I saw you all, and by you all I mean every politician. I saw you all and I thought to myself, tantos, they're all a part of the same thing, right? And I've been kind of throughout the years noticing, and I'm surprised, and this just goes to show how great my investigative work is. I thought you were a part of it, right? And so that's why that's one of the reasons why I feel it's important to do this. It's important. You've taken time out of your day to come and speak directly to the people that are listening to our little listening base. It's your voice. It's not anonymity. It's not some fake profile. This is you. This is who you are. And I appreciate the time that you've taken. These people are trying to disassociate themselves politically because it's become toxic. As you ran independent, you ran with a different group, you've been there for 4 or 5 times. You're doing something right. What do you think that is?
I like to say that I do the right thing, and I'm a little different in the sense that I don't feel that I belong to any one group or that there is. I have built bridges, relationships, because ultimately that's what politics is. It's relationships. I do not use my office to hurt. I truly don't. Unfortunately, I sometimes do my job and that hurts somebody, and it's all a matter of perspective. Now, as far as politics goes, these 4 individuals, they are all my friends. I consider each and every one of them still my friends. I understand that politically they kind of sort of like split up. I remain friends with them. The unfortunate thing about politics sometimes is that friendships go by the wayside because of those politics, because sometimes people make assumptions about you. People that you grew up with make assumptions that you're doing things, and they, instead of talking to you about it, they just assume that you're doing that, and that sometimes hurts feelings, when you have your childhood friends say things about you.
We are all a part of the same community, and I've always had the impression that once you win, you kind of become a part of the whole. Bobby Salinas talking about the division that he has within the commissioner's court in Roma. It's really obvious that they came in with their own agenda, that they came in with a plan, and it's difficult to see over time. You have to basically cut the clips from month to month and then put them all together to see the clear picture. And sure, I'm out there talking about Joel the way that I do because I feel somebody has to. If you're you're going to be transparent, then be transparent. But don't come and tell me, hey, I'm going to bring you transparency, all the while hiding as much as I possibly can. If I heard more discussion in the Roma Commissioner Court, I might actually believe that they're trying, but that's not the case. In your situation, when you fall into your position, you're pretty much in control of that office, right?
In my office?
Yes.
Yes, my office. I'm the office holder. I'm the one that it all ends with me. And that's a really big responsibility that I take really seriously, that I've actually talked about to different people. But going back to your point about being on opposite sides and working together, that may be for the City Council of Roma. That what you're saying, I can't find error with your analysis in it. But over in the county, I can tell you that currently, let me give you an example. Mr. Humberto Gonzalez, he's our county clerk. Politically speaking, he's on one side and I'm on the other. He and I have worked tremendously well. I respect the man as a person. I respect him as a politician. He is serving his people the way he needs to. And we've developed a great rapport between our offices, along with the county court at law, which is Orlando Rodriguez as well, coincidentally from Garceño.
And all three of you guys, Humberto, Orlando, and you, like the DA, you guys have these offices that you're in control of, unlike the commissioner's court, whether it's county or city, where you're relying on other people to kind of pass decisions or make decisions. Yeah, you have to get some of your stuff approved through funding or budgets and whatnot. It's like once you're in there, you're taking on the responsibility, and anything that happens, it's going to get magnified by your political opposition in the upcoming race or whatnot. But you guys have this luxury where you can, in my opinion, where you can establish and bridge those relationships. What does Clyde do in Roma in dealing with this frustration that it becomes more evident in the most recent videos coming out of the council meetings, where he doesn't even get the discussion that he wants. He doesn't have the opportunity to do the interviews that he wants to do. And Joel is aggressively just pushing to get things done because either the charter, he says, or because it's just something that he wants done through vote.
Ultimately, the way, and I haven't seen the videos that you're talking about, but generally speaking, when you're talking about councils, it's always a numbers game. Ultimately, it's a numbers game. If you have 5 members on the council, 3 beats 2. And and if you have a school board, you have 7, in which 4 beats 3. And it's always a numbers game. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. Sometimes you'll vote things just purely on political ideology, or you're going to vote because you believe in your heart the way that it's supposed to be. Whatever the case is, ultimately, in my opinion, I've never had a vote. I've always advised these boards, these councils. But what I do see ultimately is let individuals that don't have the votes, let them get their word across. Let them, discuss it and try and make their case. If you have the votes, there's no harm. Let them get their word, let them get their arguments out there, and you'll still have your votes anyway.
How many times in your experience has something come out of your mouth that changes your whole perspective on what you're doing? Because that's kind of like the value that I see in it. I think that sometimes if you don't talk about some of these things that are happening, you don't have a discussion as to why you're hiring someone or et cetera, you're not even listening to yourself at that point. Talk about it. Have you ever run into that situation where you say something and you kind of just pause and stop and you think to yourself, wow, that I just said that?
Yeah, mostly, not necessarily professionally, but it has happened where personally that sometimes I will say something and I'll be like, that didn't really sound
right.
The way it did in my head. And so you do have to do some self-reflection, like I talked about earlier, looking at yourself in the mirror and be honest with yourself. Sometimes, you're not perfect. You're a human being and you're going to make errors. You're going to make mistakes. I try as best as I can to be able to admit when I am wrong as much as I can.
In Rio, I know I've said a lot of things about Dr. B and Danny and Eleazar Velasquez. I look at them, they at least try to give the impression that they care enough to talk about it. Yes, some of the stuff that's coming out of their mouths is out of left field, but at least they're giving that impression. Then I'm looking at the videos from Roma, and I don't even have that. What I have is a reminder that they have the majority and they're going to push it through. And I just wish there was some conversation. These are things that the city is considering. It's important.
I agree. I think ultimately what our country was founded on was discussion and differences of opinion. That's what we all have. And I don't know why politics became so toxic over the last 5 years. And I'm not talking about just Starr County. I'm talking about our country. We are so divided. I grew up, my mother is all but in name a Republican. Her favorite governor was Governor Bill Clements. He's a Republican icon. My father loved Ann Richards, true Democrat, a Texan Democrat. That's the household that I grew up in. They supported each other's, their own respective parties. They were Republican and Democrat. When Obama ran, lo and behold, my mother, the staunch Republican, decides to vote Democrat for Obama.
I think a lot of people did that.
Then my father, the staunch Democrat, turns around and votes Republican. And so they voted for the individual, not the party on that election. And ultimately, my parents are still together. They didn't divorce, and they were able to work things out.
They didn't shoot each other from across the living room.
Well, what I take in mind is that, people are going to disagree with me. They may not agree with everything I say, but they have that right. We live in the United States. They have the right to disagree. If I don't agree with them, they need to respect that as well. I have friends on both political parties in our county and whatnot. Ramiro Guillen, he and I don't agree on every single thing. Ultimately, at the end of the day, he supports his candidate, I support mine. The public decides, someone takes office. That's just the way it is. And whoever takes office doesn't only, and this is something like I said nationally, Donald Trump, much as I disagree with him, and I don't agree with a lot of things he says and does, I agree with policies that he has, but what he says is horrible sometimes.
Yeah.
He's my president. Did I vote for him? Hell no. But he is my president. He governs me, and he governs everybody in the United States, not just the people that voted for him. Just like myself, when I take office after an election, I don't just represent the individuals that voted for me. I represent everybody. And the way I look at it is, if I wasn't able to have you vote for me on this election, this cycle, I'm going to try and do something so that I can earn your vote the next go around.
I think that I'm better public servant. That's exactly the divide that I'm trying to make. I'm trying to say, let's lean at a very basic level towards the individuals that think like guys like Clyde, who are in there thinking to themselves, I'm here to serve the people on a greater scope, and to try to stay away from anyone that even hints at just playing the numbers game. At the very least, talk about the stuff that you're doing. I'm trying really hard to make a division. I'm trying really hard as a citizen, as a taxpayer, as a voter, to kind of create at the very least a model of basic ideas, and that's one of them, though. You just hit the nail on the head for me. I've been trying to create a divide of the people that understand that they're going in there to serve all of their constituents, including the people that didn't vote for them. Yeah. Because that's kind of what I'm getting. I'm getting this idea that, okay, if you don't vote for this guy, just leave town for a couple of years and come back in the next political cycle.
Yeah, and basically, on my Facebook page on my office, you have a little area where you get to put the little slogan of what you're about. My motto for my office, it's been there for years, and it's here to serve, not to be served. Every day I realize taxpayers are my bosses. My kids always ask me, is the judge your boss? I said, no, my boss is everybody that pays taxes in the county. I'm here to serve them. This is their office. It's their building. It's their courtroom. Whenever I pick a jury, that's what I start with, is that this is your courtroom. We are here to serve you all.
Out of all of the things that I've seen while you're a county attorney, I think the thing that I appreciate the most is your ability to communicate to the people, especially the guys like me, kind of like power users when it comes to legal terms. Yeah, we know some things, but we're still disconnected from the actual reality of it. But you have a really good way of communicating the things that happen, and that's even after it gets chopped up by whoever's doing the report. But I do pay attention to the monitor also. I think Berenice Garcia, is it? She does a really good job of laying out the story. But the fact that you take the time and at least do that, I appreciate the communication that you've held with the county throughout the years.
Ultimately, like I've said in the past, the people that I serve, they range from doctors, lawyers, congressmen, down to individuals who work in the fields, laborers, bricklayers, mechanics, people that are not working, people that weren't able to go to school because they had to go and get a job, people whose parents paid for everything that they went to college and they became teachers. I represent everybody, and ultimately what we all have in common is that in our society, the way we have things set up right now and the way it should stay is that one person, one vote. Not any person's vote does not count more than any other's. everybody really truly is equal when you get down to it. And ultimately, when you have juries, jury panels, a lot of times you're not left with the highly educated, because oftentimes those individuals have friends in high places that get them out of jury duty. Well, lo and behold, what you have is common people, which is all of us, individuals that work. You have maids, you have mechanics, you have some teachers, you have all walks of life that are going to sit there and judge somebody else. And when you start trying to think too much of yourself and you try to be fancy and use big words, you really look dumb, quite frankly, because they're not going to understand you. Sometimes they're going to not like you.
Like talking calculus to a guy who could barely understand arithmetic.
Basically, and then what you're going to have is you're going to have somebody that's not going to care for you and is going to not listen to you. Ultimately, that in my job, in my profession, I talk a lot and I want people to hear me and to listen to what it is I'm saying. That's ultimately because I'm trying to get my point across. And that's why I try to speak without any salsita, without any sort of glitter. It's just lo básico.
And if anybody would sit down and try to define what it means to be de la gente, I think that's where I normally start at. When are you going to run again?
Well, coming up this primary, we've got coming up this March primary, I will be running for re-election.
Do you know who's running against you?
At this point, no one has said that they're going to look to run, but I'm getting ready for a race no matter what.
Well, hopefully closer to that time, I'll be able to steal you away a little bit more. But I appreciate the time that you've taken, Victor. You've shed light on a lot of things that I don't think anybody else could deliver a perspective other than someone in your position. So it's really important to us to hear you say it, and I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for for the kind words, but quite frankly, like I said, I don't think I'm special. These are just my opinions. It's just the way I feel. It is what it.
Good. I want one of your cameras.
Really? Right now? Really? Right now?
Maybe the public should know that all of this has been set up by the Starr County District Attorney's Office.
Well, all I can do.
Cállate la boca.
An individual who does not have a Chapter 21 contract,
Before we go,
Cállate la boca.
make a statement today that we are approving an individual who does not have a Chapter 21 contract.
before we go, personnel issues.
Cállate la boca.
My name is Joel Hinojosa Jr. and I'm the councilman for the city of Roma, and I am truly honored to introduce to you my friend. Well, he's more than that.
Cállate la boca.
My dear friends and residents of the 229th.
Cállate la boca.
But I also know we just spent $7 million.
Cállate la boca.
Vamos a trabajar juntos.
Cállate la boca.
Vamos a trabajar juntos.
Yo no sé de qué me está hablando.
No sabes de lo que estoy hablando.